Actually, I guess you guys can hear me without the mic. I'll try to. Okay, it's lovely to be here. Honorable Ministers, respected guests and fellow entrepreneurs. It's fantastic. I love what you're doing in Melbourne, attracting all these companies down. I really wish I never left. It's one of my favorite cities in the world, and I've lived in quite a lot of places, so it's good to be here. I'm just going to say the sector no one's really talking about is healthcare, and it's a really important place to start talking about because we all need good healthcare in the future, right? So I'm just going to also preview that. I'm not going to talk about business models and hockey stick graphs and acquisition metrics. I'm going to tell a few stories tonight and tell you what's going on and what I'm trying to do. And I'm going to share some experience on innovation. So. I'm going to start with these handouts I have. Hopefully will give you a reference on what I'm trying to do, and maybe you can get back in touch with me. So I want to start with failure, right? I just want you guys to think back to when you failed, or you went through some hardship, and you really struggled to make ends meet, or maybe you're a doctor and you failed to save someone's life, or you were really struggling to have someone validate your work, right? And think back to that defining moment, which really made you who you are today. Now you're all here today because you succeeded, right? You are all successes in your own right. And I really want you to think about yourselves as the lucky in the lucky country, because there's a lot of people who are struggling out there. And I'm going to give you some examples of that as well. And with your success, really, I'm asking for you to help in the change that we need in healthcare and technology and innovation. So let me start by telling you about a patient. He was 10 when he was diagnosed with depression. There was no support structures in school for his family or for his teachers. They had 2 years of drug therapy. It didn't work. At 17, he had to have electroshock therapy. And on the photo there, that guy is Adam, his new friend of mine. And he believes passionately that no one should go through life without the right support structures. And it's his passion to change the education system so that these support structures exist for the parents and the teachers and people around you, so that depression is better managed, because it's an unmentionable and misdiagnosed illness, and it's an illness, it's a real disease, right? So it's a real problem in society today. And no one with depression should be unsupported, and suicide is not an answer, right? So Adam's passion made him invest 3 years of his life in writing a book and $50,000. And when it came to publish it, no one helped him, so he had to publish independently. So the book is called Mom, I Wish I Was Dead. Now it's a very fierce title. It's because he wants you to stand up and start listening, and he wants society to start doing that. I think it's important. And you know what? He's been successful. He sold thousands of copies of this book. And what happened to him was he went to the publishers and they said, mate, if you were an Ian Thorpe, we would invest in you. But you're some unknown author. We can't trust that this will make money. This happens again and again to the entrepreneurs out there, So that's the hardship he's got to go through. And he told me, I've got a great family, I've got a great support network, I'm white, I'm from a wealthy background, wealthy-ish background. If it was so hard for me, I can't imagine how hard it is for those people out there who don't have my blessings. So I just want us to think about that, because we are a very multicultural society. And that's why I say we are the lucky in this lucky country to be here together and talking tonight. So I don't want to come across as too hard, but I'm very passionate about helping people. So if I do, just see me later and calm me down. So I really want to say that's innovation. It's the hardship, it's the frustration, and it's the passion to make an impact. That impact is innovation. It's capturing value and changing people's lives. It's not just the technology, it's actually making a difference, right? So let me tell you about an international student, middle-income family, grew up in Africa. At 14, he wanted to be a cardiologist. He got accepted into Ivy League universities in the US. He was could have gone to Cambridge or the IITs, which have spawned companies like Sun Microsystems. He got into ANU with a full tuition scholarship. He could afford to go to the US anyway. And he was good at cricket, so he came to Australia. He thought he had a bright future here. He graduated from engineering, came to Melbourne, worked at the Bionic Ear Institute, and then struggled between jobs for years and waited tables on Lygon Street. He moved into finance like many of his colleagues because that's where it was all going and that's where you can earn money. But he was never satisfied. So after doing an MBA at a really good European school, focusing on entrepreneurship, he went back to follow his passion in healthcare and innovation. Now he's mentoring startups. He's worked for a healthcare consultancy. He's delivered over 22 events in the last 2.5 years. And he's built a global network in Australia. And he's trying to help people like Adam. And that guy is me. So I'm standing here in front of you to ask for your support in doing what I'm trying to do. So my vision is to build a thriving ecosystem for innovation in healthcare and technology that supports it. And through Health Tech Sydney, I've shared a lot of information and our events through YouTube. We have had the best industry speakers talk, and there's a long way to go still. I think we're just getting started. I'm working with the groups in Melbourne and Brisbane, and I'm starting one in Adelaide. And there's about 4,000 people already who are engaged by this community, these grassroots innovation, as I call it. So the reason, like I said earlier, the reason for what I'm doing is because I feel there's a failure in the innovation ecosystem. And so on those graphs you see a little diagram of what I think is important, and I think some people have alluded to it tonight. So let me just explain why I say that. It's because it shouldn't be that hard to get a good job, and I think we're really failing to create those jobs here. So what I'm seeing more and more of through the startup networks and what I'm aware of in healthcare is a lot of what I call endpoint innovation. It's innovation at the node, it's not core innovation, and we need to change that. So let me start by talking about funding. We rank 16th globally on per capita funding. We rank 32nd in the OECD rankings for foreign direct investment for research and business. We've made budget cuts to collaboration and commercialization. That's not going to create the future. Right. The Accelerating Commercialization Grant is perversely against the startup. So I've got people in the medical device and healthcare world who can't get those funds because they're not designed for startups. If you change your business model and you go back, they'll throw you out, right? So that's not how a startup works. So we need to change the structures to enable access to funding. We need venture capital at terms which will happen globally, right here. Because capital is global. You can move your company wherever you want. And that's what's happened to a lot of Australian companies. They've become US companies. A live core, electrocardiograms through your mobile phone to manage your heart, they become a US company. They hired Vikram Gotra, who is ex-Google, ex-Yahoo. And they were trying to look at me as a product manager, and I found out they were Australian. So there's a number of examples like that where we struggle. Now, I just want to make a comparison to Israel. Mr. Roy on Q&A, I was there, made this remark. He said, private funding will start to replace government funding, and we just got to follow that model. But let me just state, Israel is 20 plus years ahead of us. They've been investing $50 million a year through incubators, direct funding startups. Up to $880,000 goes to direct funding of these startups. So they've invested $760 million, and that's 1,700 companies which have raised now $3.9 billion. That's a 5 times multiplier on that investment. So we need a long-term view in direct funding and make it easy to access grants and money for startups, because you can buy your shoes if you want to, but we need it to be behind a proven business model. Okay, so just saying, soldier. we need to create spin-out culture. What I talk about when I say spin-out culture is the incentives for research to come out and take ownership of what they've done, right? That's super important because that's what creates jobs. It's these researchers who come up with an industry. Look at the size of Cochlear. Look at Serge and Larry, 2 guys. They spun out, created a company. How big is Google today? We need that right here, right now, and not in 5 years. So I'm going to give you a statistic. 22 spin-outs happened in 2013. We had 47 in 2000. We've had 159 since 2000 in Australia, which is the rate of 1 per institution every 4 years. That is ridiculous, okay? So there's a good report by Alan Pettigrew, the chief scientist report. Australia has 1/3 the number of scientists in business compared to the US or Europe, right? So we've got so little investment in R&D, we've got so few researchers, but if you look at, there's a graph which you don't have access to, but we still have a lot of people applying for the R&D tax credit. So I'm just going to ask someone in government to look into whether that's actually working, because I don't know whether it's working. How many patents are being filed? Who knows? So that's not a stab at anyone again, but I just want to know the numbers and if it works. So fundamentally, this is about job creation in Australia, and I want to get, fundamentally it's about job creation in Australia because yes, we have a good lifestyle, but innovators want to make impact. So they're not going to come here just because it's sunny, Then you're getting the wrong kind of migrants. We want people who are going to make change and create industry. I'm going to ask you, how many of you have daughters? Yeah. Okay, cool. Now we want more women in STEM, right? Saturday I met a girl, master's in biomedical engineering and materials. 3 years out she is. She's been filling shelves at Coles and Woolies and working in pharmacies between jobs in research labs, right? She's telling me her talent's being wasted. So I'm making her an introduction. I said, come to the Oz Biotech beers tomorrow night. I'll make some introductions. Maybe you'll get a job out of it. They even have a 3D printer. That'll be awesome. She goes, I have one in my closet. It's not even funny, I was just like, I had to give her a hug. I was like, oh my God, I feel like I really want to help her out. So that was Saturday, and that's happened to me, and I want more women in engineering. I'm an engineer, it's pretty like, 2 girls, 3 girls, So, and again, I'm just going to make a comment back to the Q&A. So Roy, Mr. Roy, I call him, spoke to his buddy at Nitro and said, what happens when you have kids and the CEO paused to think, maybe I'll come back to Australia. Okay. One of Australia's biggest exports is our education, our tertiary education. We attract international talent here, primarily in STEM, right, with great capability. And if they struggle here in Australia for jobs and to make a difference, and they leave, they're not going to come back. It'll be very, very difficult to bring them back. So we really need to start thinking about what are we doing to incentivize people to stay long term. So that's all about jobs. I'm just going to talk about a couple of other things on that beautiful circle. Infrastructure. We need physical infrastructure, which are the incubators. We need access to great labs for the scientists. We need better collaboration between industry, government, research, and professionals. We need digital platforms that enable innovation. And I'm working on some of those with a non-profit I'm working on. We need market access because Australia is structurally not big enough to support some of the industries or the capabilities for technology. So we need to leverage our position in Asia to go into different markets. And we need to get that funding from overseas to seed and grow the companies we have here. So we need to get more foreign direct investment, but also get VC funding and customers buying our products overseas. So market access is super important. We need to create a innovation density. You want to be able to walk into a pub any night of the week and meet your co-founder, then your next hire, or the person you want to walk to work for, or your investor. We need that capability, that probability of a chance event more often. But that comes through those basic changes we need to start making in Australia. The cultural mindset we've all spoken about, we need to start investing in education and people and not real estate, and really opening doors, helping other people, paying it forward. We need that change, and taking dibs on the guy who's unknown. I don't support Roger Federer, I support the other guy, because I want to help the guy who's actually struggling to make it. And that's just the way I am now. Roger's done pretty well, but he's number 2 in career rankings of earnings. Djokovic just beat him. And then we have the role models. So at the end of all that, the culture, we have role models that will endorse that pathway into entrepreneurship. So the non-profit is to really create a change in the way we do innovation in Australia. And let me just say, fintech's been like a big industry for us here. We've got Stone and Chalk. We spend 50% of our budget on social, health, and welfare, right? And it's growing, and it's not sustainable. So we need to start spending money which will make healthcare more efficient in the future. And it's a big spend, and it's not efficient. So it's very inefficient. And the incubator is not to replace what the accelerator programs are doing. The incubator is not there to, it's there to add value where it's being lost. And I can talk to you guys about that, because there's a gap between when you go to VC and when you graduate from an accelerator. There's a value of death. And this incubator is to fix that value of death. And that's what I'm trying to do for healthcare. Now I've got some sponsors. One of the sponsors is a fintech, is actually a capital markets CRC, and they've got intellectual property they spend into fraud detection in capital markets. But they've also got that same intellectual property in a company called Lorica Health, which works with 95% of the insurers in Australia. And they believe in this industry because it's a big growth industry that's just starting to change, and it's going to change a lot in the next few years. So. So I'm just going to end with saying, look, I'm building partners across the technology stack and across the service model, the service portfolio. So if you can make introductions or help me out, that would be great. This is not going to be a Sydney thing; it's going to be a national thing. I had my first sale of the market access thing idea today with a CEO of a very well-known wearables and analytics company that works with companies like Manchester United, and I'm looking at doing a market entry strategy for them to India. And I'm having a chat with another CEO tomorrow morning. So yeah, if you want to help out in the next 10 or 15 year of innovation for Australia, come have a chat with me. Otherwise, if this fails, then most likely I'll be seeing you in San Francisco. So yeah, thanks a lot for your time. Look forward to seeing you.
Thank you very much, Gaurav. Well, I just want to thank all of our speakers one more time for